Hello everybody, welcome back to another live video. This is your girl Annabelle the Angel back at it with another live, and in today's live we are doing another Hot Girl Reads 48 Laws of Power by Mr. Robert Greene himself. Now, I was told I'm scary for reading this book, so I hope you're scared. But yes, guys, I'm noticing that a lot of you guys are from the United States. Before, when I was saying like, oh, a lot of you guys are not from the United States. Yeah. So when I was saying, oh, you guys are not from the United States, blah blah blah. At the time, most of you guys were not from there, but now a lot of you guys are from the United States. So welcome to Miami. Anyways, if you know me, only time I'm drinking anything, I'm drinking wine or champagne. So I'm drinking some sweet peach. And let's go ahead and open up our books, everybody. So open up your books and open your book up to, no ma'am, just sit and listen. Do you want peanut butter? Guys, should we give her peanut butter? Okay, let's give her some peanut. Actually, I'm looking at this house. You do not deserve any peanut butter. Excuse me. You don't deserve any peanut butter. You see this mess you made? Guys, I literally cleaned up my house. All I needed to do was sweep him out my floor. This dog ruined the floor, destroying stuff. I'm literally so annoyed with her. She was in so much trouble today. So, guys, go ahead and open up your books to page 191. We are at Law 25. Recreate yourself. Judgment. Do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life. Okay, let's see how long this book. The last live was OD long. Okay, so let's get into the observance of the law. 1. Julius Caesar made his first significant mark on Roman society in 65 BC when he assumed the post of aedile, the official in charge of the grain distribution and public games. He began his entrance into the public eye by organizing a series of contests. On several occasions, he paid for these spectacles out of his own pocket. To the common man, Julius Caesar became indelibly associated with these much loved events. As he slowly rose to attain the position of consul, his popularity among the masses served as a foundation of his power. He had created an image of himself as a great public showman. In 49 BC, Rome was on the brink of a civil war between rival leaders, Caesar and Pompey. At the height of the tension, Caesar, an addict of the stage, attended the theatrical. Hi, welcome to the live. Entered a theatrical performance and afterwards, lost in thought, he wandered in the darkness back to his camp at the Rubicon, the river that divides Italy from Gaul, where he had been campaigning. To march his army back into Italy across the Rubicon would mean the beginning of the war with Pompey. Before his staff, Caesar argued both sides, forming the options like an actor on stage, a precursor of Hamlet. Finally, to put his soliloquy to an end, he pointed a seemingly innocent apparition at the edge of the river. A very tall soldier blasting a call on a trumpet, then going across a where am I at, guys? A bridge over the Rubicon, and pronounced, "Let us accept this as a sign from the gods and follow where they beckon, in vengeance on our double enemies, the die." All of this he spoke portentously and gesturing towards the river and looking his generals. He knew that these generals were uncertain in their support, but his oratory overwhelmed them with a sense of drama of the moment and of the need to seize the time. A more prosaic speech would never have had the same effect. The generals rallied to his cause. Caesar and his army across the Rubicon and by the following year had vanquished Pompey, making Caesar dictator of Rome. In warfare, Caesar also played the leading man with gusto. He was as skilled as a horseman as any of his soldiers and took pride in outdoing them in feats of bravery and endurance. He entered a battle astride the strongest mount so that his soldiers would see him in the thick of battle, urging them on, always positioning himself in the center, a godlike symbol of power and a model for them to follow. Of all the armies in Rome, Caesar's was the most devoted and loyal. His soldiers, like the common people who had attended his entertainments, had come to identify with him and with his cause. After the defeat of Pompey, the entertainments grew at scale. Nothing like them had ever been seen in Rome. The chariot race became more spectacular, the gladiator fights more dramatic, as Caesar staged fights to the death among the Roman nobility. He organized enormous mock naval battles on an artificial lake. Plays were performed in every Roman ward. Why am I reading like that today? I don't know. A giant new theater was built that sloped dramatically down the Tarpeian rock. Crowds from all over the empire flocked to these events, and the roads to Rome lined with visitor tents. And in 45 BC, timing his entry to the city for maximum effect and surprise, Caesar brought Cleopatra back to Rome after his Egyptian campaign and staged even more extravagant public spectacles. These events were more than devices to divert the masses. Okay. Caesar was the master, oh my god, of his public image and of which he was forever aware. When he appeared before crowds, he wore the most spectacular purple robes. He would be upstaged by no one. He was notoriously vain about his appearance. It was said to be that one reason he enjoyed being honored by the Senate and people was that on these occasions he could wear a laurel wreath hiding his baldness. Caesar was a masterful orator. He knew how to say a lot by saying a little. Intuited, intuited the moment to end a speech for maximum effect. He never failed to incorporate a surprise into his public appearances, a startling announcement that would heighten their drama. Immensely popular among the Roman people, Caesar was hated and feared by his rivals. One on the Ides of March, March 15th, in the year 44 BC, a group of conspirators led by Brutus and Cassius surrounded him in the Senate and stabbed him to death. Even dying, however, he kept a sense of drama, drawing the top of his gown over his face. He let go of the cloth's lower part so that it draped his legs, allowing him to die covered and decent. According to Roman historian Suetonius, his final words to his old friend Brutus, who was about to deliver the second blow, were in Greek, as if rehearsed for the end of a play. You too, my child? Aw, that's so sad. Interpretation. The Roman theater was an event for the masses, attended by crowds unimaginable today. Packed into enormous auditoriums, their audience would be amused by the riches, the rocus, the Roche's comedy, or moved by high tragedy. Theater seemed to contain the essence of life in its concentrated dramatic form. Like a religious ritual, it had a powerful instant appeal to the common man. Julius Caesar was perhaps the first public figure to understand the vital link between power and theater. This was because of his own obsessive interest in drama. He sublimated his interest in making himself an actor and a director on the world stage. He said his lines as if they had been scripted. He gestured and moved through a crowd with constant sense of how he appeared to his audience. And he incorporated surprise into his repertoire, building drama into his speeches, staging his public appearances. His gestures were broad enough for the common man to grasp them instantly. He became immensely popular. Caesar set the ideal for all leaders of people of power. Like him, you must learn to enlarge your actions through dramatic techniques such as surprise, suspense, the creation of sympathy, and symbolic identification. Also, like him, you must be constantly aware of your audience, of what will please them, and of what will bore them. You must arrange to place yourself at the center to command attention and to never be upstaged at any cost. Very interesting. Now let's go ahead and read the little red fable or poem or short story or whatever it is. So, the man who intends to make his fortune in this ancient capital of the world, Rome, must be a chameleon susceptible of reflecting the colors of the atmosphere that surrounds him. A produce apt to assume every form, every shape. He must be supple, flexible, insinuating, close, inscrutable, often base, sometimes sincere, sometimes perfidious, always concealing a part of his knowledge, indulging in but one tone of voice, patient, a perfect master of his own countenance, as cold as ice when any other man would be all fire, and if unfortunately he is not religious at heart, a very common occurrence for a soul possessing the above requisites. He must have religion in his mind, that is to say, on his face, on his lips, in his manners. He must suffer quietly. If he be an honest man, the necessity of knowing himself an errant hypocrite, the man whose soul would loathe such a life, and seek his fortune elsewhere. I do not know whether I am praising or excusing myself, but of all those qualities I possessed but one, namely flexibility. Memoirs, Giovanni Casanova, 1725 to 1798. Okay, guys. Now let's go ahead and get into the observance of the law 2. In the year 1831, a young woman named Aurore Dupin left her husband and family in the provinces and moved to Paris. She wanted to be a writer. Marriage, she felt, was worse than prison. Oh, Lord. For it left her neither the time nor the freedom to pursue her passion. In Paris, she would establish her independence and make her living by writing. Soon after Dudevant arrived in the capital, however, she had to confront certain harsh realities. To have any degree of freedom in Paris, you had to have money. For a woman, money could only come through marriage or prostitution. It's not a toy, Kushni. Your toys are over there. Thank you. No woman had ever come close to making a living by writing. Women wrote as a hobby, supported by their husbands or by an inheritance. In fact, when Dudevant first showed her writing to an editor, he told her, "You should make babies, madame, not literature." Clearly, Dudevant had come to Paris to test the impossible. In the end, though, she came up with a strategy to had ever done. A strategy to recreate herself completely, forging a public image of her own making. Women writers before her had been forced into a ready-made role, that of a second-rate artist who wrote mostly for other women. Dudevant decided that if she had to play a role, she would turn the game around. She would play the part of a man. In 1832, a publisher accepted Dudevant's first major novel, Indiana. She had chosen to publish it under the pseudonym George Sand, and all of Paris assumed that if this impressive new writer was male. Dudevant had sometimes worn men's clothes before creating George Sand. She had always found men's shirts and riding breeches more comfortable. Now, as a public figure, she exaggerated the image. She added long men's coats, gray hats, heavy boots, and dandyish cravats to her wardrobe. She smoked cigars and in conversation expressed herself like a man, unafraid to dominate the conversation or to use a saucy word. This strange male-female writer fascinated the public, and unlike other women writers, Sand found herself accepted into the clique of male artists. She drank and smoked with them, even carried on affairs with the most famous artists of Europe, Musset, Liszt, Chopin. It was she who did the wooing and also the abandoning. She moved at her discretion. Those who knew Sand well understood that the male persona protected her from the public's prying eyes. Out of the world, she enjoyed playing the part of the extreme. In private, she remained herself. She also realized that the character of George Sand can grow stale or predictable, and to avoid this, she would every now and then dramatically alter the character she had created. Instead of conducting affairs with famous men, she would begin meddling in politics, leading demonstrations, inspiring student rebellions. No one would dictate her limits of the character she had created. Long after she died, and after most people had stopped reading her novels, the larger-than-life theatricality of the character had continued to fascinate and inspire. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get into this interpretation of the law and the interpretation of what I just read to you. Throughout Sand's public life, acquaintances and other artists who spent time in her company had the feeling that they were in the presence of a man. But in her journals and to her closest friends, such as Gustave Flaubert, she confessed that she had no desire to be a man, but she was playing a part for public consumption. What she really wanted was the power to determine her own character. She refused the limits her society would have set on her. She did not attain her power, however, by being herself. Instead, she created a persona that she could constantly adapt to her own desires, a persona that attracted attention and gave her presence. Understand this: the world wants to assign you a role in life, and once you accept the role, you are doomed. Your power is limited to the tiny amount allotted to the role that you have selected or have been forced to assume. An actor, on the other hand, plays many roles. Enjoy that protean power, and if it is beyond you, at least forge a new identity, one of your own making, one that has had no boundaries assigned to it by an envious and resentful world. This act of defiance is Promethean. It makes you responsible for your own creation. Your identity will protect you from the world precisely because it is not you, it is a costume you put on and take off. You need not take it personally, and your new identity sets you apart, gives you theatrical presence. Those in the back rows can see you and hear you. Those in the front rows marvel at your audacity. Do not talk, what? Do not people talk in society of a man being a great actor? They do not mean by that he feels, but that he excels in simulating, though he feels nothing. Denis Diderot, 1713 to 1784. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get into the keys to power. The character you seem to have been both with... What am I saying today? The character you seem to have been born with is not necessarily who you are. Beyond the of the stop allowing others the ability to limit and mold them. Remake yourself into the character of power. Working on yourself like clay should be one of your greatest and most pleasurable life tasks. It makes you, in essence, an artist creating yourself. In fact, the idea of self-creation comes from the world of art. For thousands of years, only kings and highest courtiers had the freedom to shape their public image and determine their own identity. Similarly, only the kings and the wealthiest lords can contemplate their own image in art and consciously alter it. The rest of mankind played the limited role that society demanded of them and had little self-consciousness. A shift in this condition can be detected in Velázquez's painting Las Meninas, made in 1656. The artist appears at the left of the canvas, standing before a painting that is the process of creating, but that is the back to us we cannot see. Beside him stands a princess, her attendants, and one of the court dwarfs, all watching him work. The people posing for the paintings are not directly visible, but we can see them in the tiny reflections in the mirror of the back wall. The king and queen of Spain, who must be sitting somewhere in the foreground outside the picture. Whew. The painting represents a dramatic change in the dynamics of power and the ability to determine one's own position in society. For Velázquez, the artist is far more prominently positioned than the king and queen. In a sense, he is more powerful than they are, since he is clearly the one controlling the image, their image. Velázquez no longer saw himself in the slavish, dependent artist. He had remade himself into a man of power, and indeed the first people other than aristocrats to play openly with their image in Western society were artists and writers, and later on dandies and bohemians. Today the concept of self-creation has slowly filtered down to the rest of society and has become an ideal to aspire to. Like Velázquez, you must demand yourself the power to determine your position in the painting and to create your own image. The first step in the process of self-creation is self-consciousness, being aware of yourself as an actor and taking control of your appearance and emotions. As Diderot said, the bad actor is the one who is always sincere. People who wear their hearts on their sleeves out in society are tiresome and embarrassing. Bam. Their sincerity notwithstanding, is hard to take them seriously. Those who cry in public may temporarily elicit sympathy, but sympathy soon turns into scorn and irritation at their self-obsessiveness. They are crying to get attention. We feel, and a malicious part of us want to deny them the satisfaction. Good actors control themselves better. They can play sincere and heartfelt, and can affect a tear and compassionate look as well, but they don't have to feel it. They externalize emotion in the form that others can understand. Method acting is fatal in the real world. No ruler or leader could possibly play the part of all of the emotions. Guys, I just touched my eye right there and it is burning. Let's get this done. Oh my god, my eye is burning. Okay. I'm just going to start from where I was at, where I remember. The first step in the process of self-creation is self-consciousness. Being aware of yourself as an actor and taking control in your appearance and emotions. As Diderot said, Okay. No ruler or leader could possibly pay all of the part of their emotions if he showed he had it to be real. So learn self-control. Adopt the plasticity of the actor who can mold his or her face to the emotion required. The second step in the process of self-creation is a variation on the George Sand strategy, the creation of a memorable character, one that compels attention and stands out above the other players on the stage. This is the game Abraham Lincoln played. The homespun common countryman he knew was a kind of president that America had never had but would delight in electing. Although many of these qualities came naturally to him, he played them up. The hat and clothes, the beard. No president before him had worn a beard. Lincoln was also the first president to use photographs to spread his image, helping to create the icon of the homespun president. Good drama, however, needs more than an interesting appearance or a single standout moment. Drama takes place over time. It is an unfolding event. Rhythm and timing are critical. One of the most important elements in the rhythm of drama is suspense. Houdini, for instance, could sometimes complete his escape acts in seconds, but he drew them out to minutes to make the audience sweat. The key to keeping the audience on the edge of their seats is letting events unfold slowly and speeding them up at the right moment, according to a pattern and tempo you can control. Great rulers from Napoleon to Mao Zedong had used theatrical timing to surprise and divert their public. Franklin Delano Roosevelt understood the importance of staging political events in a particular order and rhythm. At the time of his 1932 presidential election, the United States was in the midst of a dire economic crisis. Banks were failing at an alarming rate. Shortly after winning the election, Roosevelt went into a kind of retreat. He said nothing about his plans or his cabinet appointments. He even refused to meet the sitting president, Herbert Hoover, to discuss the transition. By the time Roosevelt's inauguration, the country was in a state of high anxiety. In his inaugural speech, Roosevelt shifted gears. He made a powerful speech making it clear that he intended to lead a country in a completely new direction. Sweeping away the timid gestures of his predecessors, from then on, the pace of his speeches and public decisions, cabinet appointments, bold legislation, unfolded at an incredibly rapid rate. The periods after the inauguration became known as the 100 Days, as its success in altering the country's mood partly stemmed from Roosevelt's clever pacing and use of dramatic contrasts. He held for audiences in suspense, then hit them with a series of bold gestures that seemed to be more momentous because they came from nowhere. You must learn to orchestrate events in a similar manner, never revealing your cards all at once, but unfolding them in a way that heightens their dramatic effect. Besides covering a multitude of sins, good drama can also confuse and deceive your enemy. During World War II, the German playwright Bertolt Brecht worked in Hollywood as a screenwriter. After the war, he was called before the House Committee on Un-American Activities for his supposed communist sympathies. Other writers who had been called to testify planned to humiliate the committee members with an angry, emotional stand. Brecht was wiser. He would play the committee like a violin, charming them while fooling them as well. He carefully rehearsed his responses and brought along some props, notably a cigar on which he puffed away, knowing that the head of the committee liked cigars. And indeed, he proceeded to beguile the committee with well-crafted responses that were ambiguous, funny, and double-edged. Instead of an angry, heartfelt tirade, he ran circles around them with stage production, and they let him off scot-free. Other dramatic effects from your repertoire include the beau geste, an action at a climatic moment that symbolizes your triumph of your boldness. Caesar's dramatic crossing of Rubicon was a beau geste, a move that dazzled the soldiers and gave him heroic proportions. You must also appreciate the importance of stage entrances and exits. You must also... When Cleopatra first met Caesar in Egypt, she arrived rolled up in a carpet, which she arranged to have unfurled at his feet. George Washington twice left power with flourish and fanfare, first as general, then as a president who refused to sit for a third term, showing he knew how to make the moment count, dramatically and symbolically. Your own entrances and exits should be crafted and planned as king, spending too much effort trying to attract attention. And discovered that early in his careers that by standing totally still on stage, he drew attention to himself and away from others. It is less what you do that matters, clearly how you do it, your gracefulness and imposing stillness on a social stage count for more than overdoing your part and moving around too much. Finally, learn to play many roles, to be whatever the moment requires. Adapt your mask to the situation. Be protean in the faces you wear. Bismarck played the game to a perfection. To a liberal, to a hawk, he was a hawk. To a liberal, he was a liberal. To a hawk, he was a hawk. He could not be grasped, and what cannot be grasped cannot be consumed. Period. Imagine this, guys. Okay, so close your eyes unless you're driving or handling heavy machinery, and imagine this, okay? Only listen to my voice when I say this. The Greek sea god, Proteus. His power came from his ability to change shape at will, to be whatever the moment required. When Menelaus, brother of Agamemnon, tried to seize him, Proteus transformed himself into a lion, then a serpent, a panther, a boar, running water, and finally a leafy tree. Authority. Know how to be all things to all men. A discreet Proteus, a scholar among scholars, a saint among saints. This is the art of winning over everyone. Like attracts like. Take note of temperaments and adapt yourself to that of each person you meet. Follow the lead of the serious and jovial, in turn changing your mood discreetly. Baltasar Gracian. 1601 to 1658. Man, in 57 years, this guy was dropping nothing but gems. Okay, guys. Now, this is the reversal to the law if this does not work. You need to sit down. Thank you. There can really be no reversal to this critical law. Bad theater is bad theater. Even appearing natural requires art. In other words, acting. Bad acting only creates embarrassment. Of course, you should not be too dramatic. Avoid the historic gesture, but that is simply bad theater anyways. Since it violates centuries-old dramatic laws against overreacting, in essence, there is no reversal to this law. Yeah, guys, okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my thoughts about this chapter in this law. I feel like it's pretty accurate. Like, if you are in the spotlight, you better be giving a show. And also, people don't like predictability, so never let everybody know what your next move is all the time. Like, have some sort of spontaneity. And then it's like, okay, so you want to have attention, or you want to gain some sort of notoriety, but also remember your place, because remember the very first few chapters of 48 Laws of Power that I was reading to you guys. If you want to see, check the playlist, but it said never outshine the master. So in these things where you're in the spotlight and you're playing a role and you're making it theatrical, Julius Caesar was literally stabbed to death because of how likable he was. You know what I'm saying? And then so just keep that in mind. When you're the most liked person in the room, there is a lot of people that probably do not like you as well. So just keep that all in mind. And in the next couple of days, I don't know when is the next day I'm going to be back on live. So if you guys do want to see me on live anymore, please subscribe and turn on the post notifications, because I do not be letting you guys know when I'm in live, or I'm on live. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you. See you guys next time.